Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar tonight on cybersecurity and protecting all of your important information. I'm Jeff Whitaker, happy to be with you. We're happy to have some of our team members from LPL with us, our subject matter experts. Tonight we've got Michael Terry and Olivia Westberg. They are both security analysts. Michael's a senior security analyst at LPL, and their entire life's work is keeping our data and your data and assets safe from cyber criminals. Michael's been with LPL for 10 years, and prior to that, he was working at places like Capital One and Wells Fargo, doing this kind of work. And Olivia's been with LPL for 3 years. And Michael's coming to us from South Carolina. Is that right, Michael? South Carolina? And Olivia's
Just north of South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina. I'm sorry. Uh, and then Olivia's coming to us from Sacramento. And I'm here in our office in Minden, Nevada. So we're very happy about tonight and appreciate Michael and Olivia taking their time to help us out. This is being recorded and it will be up on the Jackson and Whitaker website in a few days, and it will also be on our YouTube channel. And if you missed our last webinar a few weeks ago on initial public offerings, IPOs, those are also on our website and YouTube channel. So this is a very important aspect of keeping your information safe. And I think we're going to learn a lot tonight from Michael and Olivia. But I want to just point out that LPL goes to tremendous lengths to keep your information, your data, your funds safe from hackers. As advisors, we have to go through an annual cybersecurity training. We have a secure email site that encrypts personal information that we can use to get into our systems. We have a database called ClientWorks, and that's where we see all of your personal information and all of your account and investment information. So a lot of very valuable information there. And to get into that, we have to use multiple passwords to open up the computer, to open up the program. The program is held on a private, uh, dedicated browser. We don't use Google Chrome or Edge. We have our own private browser. And then we have to use a two-step authentication and have a code sent to our phone before we can even get in. So your information is very secure, sometimes so secure we have a hard time getting in to see it with all of the layers that are there. So I think I'm going to turn the time over to Olivia first, who's going to give us an outline of things and kick us off. So take it away, Olivia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff, for the great introduction there. Definitely happy to be here today and share with you the good news of cybersecurity. We like to call our presentation Cybersecurity Made Simple because we understand that the topics we're going to go over today can be really complicated and it's always changing. Cybersecurity is constantly being talked about in the news, whether it's new threats that are coming up or new breaches that maybe have happened at other big companies. Cybersecurity is not going away anytime soon, and these cyber criminals are not stopping their tactics to continue to try to target our personal information and our funds. So we want to try to break that down as much as we can for you all today to give you some key takeaways that you can take maybe to the dinner table later on tonight or to your friends and family around you. Maybe you can implement some of these things in your day-to-day life, and that really could help make the difference at the end of the day and if you become a victim of a scam or not. So we really want to arm you with some of these simple takeaways when it comes to cybersecurity. That way you can help reduce that risk in your own lives as well. So the agenda that we have for today, First, we're going to talk a little bit about how we protect your information and how we work together with your office. Also, give you a quick introduction into exactly what cybersecurity is. I'll then hand things over to Mike here, who's going to talk about artificial intelligence, that super hot topic that's going on right now. And then he'll also talk about social engineering, which is that main tactic that these cyber criminals are using. Then he's going to hand it back over to me, and I'm going to end us out today with protecting yourself and protecting your home. But before we get into everything, I wanted to quickly give you a definition to exactly what cybersecurity is, the reason why you're here for this webinar today. So starting out with the basics, what cybersecurity actually means, why it matters. At its core, cybersecurity is all about protecting your networks, devices, and personal data from unauthorized access or misuse. It ensures that your information stays private, accurate, and available when you need it. And you should definitely care about cybersecurity because cyber threats are constantly evolving. Bad actors are getting more sophisticated every single day, and their goal is simple: gain access to your information and use it for fraud. Strategies of social engineering and AI are making these attacks more and more sophisticated, and it makes it harder to detect because cyber criminals are taking advantage of human emotions and are using those AI technologies to disguise their communications to make them seem more legitimate. These attackers come from many different places. Some are motivated by financial gain, like organized cyber criminals, and then others can be disgruntled employees or individuals seeking out personal advantage. In more extreme cases, attacks can even be tied to terrorism or national state activity intended to cause widespread disruption. But here we tend to focus on scammers who try to steal everyday people's personal information, rather than terrorism or warfare criminals who tend to impact the critical infrastructure of countries. The key takeaway here is that cybersecurity really isn't just an IT issue. It's something that affects everybody and is something that, if you haven't seen it already, maybe an example of a scam or attack in your day-to-day life, you most likely will sometime in the future. So it's really important that this is something that you continue that education on and continue to share that good news with the people around you. Moving on, we also wanted to talk about LPL Financial and our relationship with your office, Jackson Whitaker, as well as how we better protect your information. So you might be wondering, how exactly do we do that for you? So we take a very layered approach to security, just as Jeff was mentioning earlier. We're not just relying on one safeguard here at LPL. We have many multiple protections working together to ensure the security of your information. So we're protecting your investment accounts, your assets, and your personal information through our different secure financial tools that we have in place and the state-of-the-art systems that we have backing us up. Behind the scenes, we have dedicated cybersecurity professionals and ongoing developments to ensure that we stay ahead of these emerging threats. And we work directly with your office to ensure that they complete that annual training that they're required to have and also have proper solutions in place to help reduce and mitigate risk. We have a dedicated relationship with them. This is a really great office that we work really closely with, so they know exactly who they can reach out to for their cybersecurity needs when they need help. And security is that shared responsibility. While we put strong protections in place, your continued awareness and vigilance is also really important here. And we make sure that our offices are aware of that and also can help spread that good news with you as well. So think of this definitely as a partnership between you, your office, and LPL Financial to help keep your information safe. Now that we've gone over how we keep your information safe, I also wanted to close out this section on our LPL cyber fraud guarantee. And this adds just another layer of confidence to what we supply here at LPL and how we do continuously protect your information and value that cybersecurity. So what this guarantee states is that if there was ever unauthorized access to an LPL system that directly led to losses in your account, LPL will reimburse you for 100% of those realized losses. And this is a very powerful commitment that we have that reflects the level of confidence we have in our security infrastructure. And it's something that we're very, very proud of here as well because it's something that puts us ahead of our competitors that isn't widely offered in other places. So if you really want to learn more about this guarantee or LPL's additional cybersecurity practices, we do have this all publicly posted on lpl.com. I'd welcome you to go to that page, lpl.com. We have our own cybersecurity section on there that expands on this guarantee, as well as some additional best practice and insight into what we do here at LPL. All right, now I'm going to hand things over to Mike. He's going to go into a little bit more detail about this very hot topic, which is AI.
All right, thanks so much, Olivia. Good afternoon, everyone. So I will be talking about artificial intelligence or AI. This is a hot topic, but when we really talk about artificial intelligence, it's really not something that's new. I think it's really just recently becoming more visible to everyone. So if you actually were to look up when AI actually started, it was back in the 1950s, and it started when computer scientists just began to ask a simple questions: Can machines think? And so back then, AI was very basic. It really just executed simple instructions based off of predefined logic and rules. But then there was a shift from rules to learning, and it went to machine learning. So instead of programming every rule, you started teaching the systems that they could learn from data. So when you think of examples of machine learning, you can think of like fraud detection as it relates to banking, right? Uh, they're able to identify suspicious behavior versus normal behavior. This is kind of a result of AI and using that machine learning. Then they took it a step further. You think about deep learning, which is an even more advanced approach, right? So this is kind of a subset of machine learning, but it's able to process huge and complex data sets. So these may be patterns that humans may miss. So some examples of these would be, the facial recognition on your phone, right? When we talk about the Alexa products, this is another example of it as well. When you talk about, those self-driving cars, those automated cars, this is another example of it. So you see how these things are constantly evolving. And now we have generative AI, right? This is the new latest and greatest form of AI, right? Where AI is actually able to generate text or photos, right, based off of input that you enter into it. So some examples of that would be tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. And so when we talk about generative AI, because it is publicly available to everyone, let's kind of talk about what some general guidelines should be surrounding using generative AI. And let's also talk about, how to effectively prompt using the tool as well. So you got to remember when you're using these tools that they are just tools, right? So the best use cases for them would be to draft some content, or if you're looking to summarize a document, or if you're looking to brainstorm, right? Again, you want to be very specific as far as with the inputs that you're prompting it to provide you with. So we'll talk more about that later, but really just the questions that you're asking. The more specific you are with the questions, the better your results will be. You also want to understand the limitations and make sure that you verify these responses. So these tools will do something called hallucinate. If you hear about hallucinations, it's essentially just going to provide you with inaccurate information. It may even cite sources in its response, right? But again, you got to remember that these are tools and that you need to verify them before, taking that information as being actually factual and golden. And then the most important part of this slide is to make sure that you never enter any sensitive or private information into these tools, right? Any information that could be linked back to you, because these tools do learn on the data that's entered into them. So if you enter sensitive information, whether that information be specific to you, or if it's proprietary information associated with the company that you work for, it could resurface at a later point in time if it's prompted correctly. And then you don't know, who's going to be able to access or see that information if it's resurfaced. So never enter any specific sensitive information into those tools. All right, so now we'll talk a little bit just about prompting and, some examples of what's the best way to prompt is. So you see here, we have an ineffective prompt. It's asking you to tell me about new tech trends. This is a very vague question, and you're not really specifying, what specific tech trends, what year you want those tech trends to occur in, how you want the response to be provided back to you. So you're not going to really get a good response if this was how you prompted the tool. If we look at a example of an effective prompt, you see it says generate a summary of the latest market trends. You want the top 5 emerging technologies. It lists the specific year that you're looking for those technologies and the impacts on businesses as well. Now you're telling the tool what you want the tool to assume that it is. So assume that you're a market analyst presenting to the board of directors, and you're telling the tool how you want the information presented to you as well, right? In bullet points. So the more specific you are with prompting, the better your response is going to be. So make sure that you are as specific as possible when you're using the tools to effectively prompt. All right, now we'll talk about deep fakes. And when we talk about deep fakes, this is kind of a newer form of AI that we're seeing, where bad actors are able to use synthetic images or they're able to do voice duplication and impersonation attempts. So with deepfakes, what we're seeing, you'll see somebody that you're familiar with, or you hear a voice that you've spoken to, and you'll be duped or tricked into, acting on a fraudulent request, and that's how those bad actors are able to commit fraud. In fact, a couple years ago, back in 2024, there was an individual in Hong Kong that was on a video conference call. So similar to the call that we're on today, speaking with individuals, there were multiple individuals on the call that he assumed to be part of the company, right? These were facial individuals that they recognized. And when they were on the call, they were actually all deep fakes, right? So it was one person imitating all these other individuals, and they tricked the chief financial officer into sending out $25 million, right? So it's always important, we say, that make sure that you are verified any sort of urgent request that you get, regardless of the source, whether it's someone that you're familiar with that you're speaking with, or someone that you see, you just want to make sure that it is them and that it's legitimate. So as it relates to deepfakes, you just want to make sure that you're cautious of any unexpected or unsolicited communication, especially if that communication is coming from like a public platform, like a messaging service like WhatsApp or something like Facebook, something of that nature as well. You also want to consider creating a safe word for your family members, for those individuals that are close to you as well. The thought process there is that if you get an urgent request and it sounds like someone you're familiar with, you want to make sure that you have them to take that extra step to verify that safe word just to ensure that, in fact, it actually is them as well. You never want to share sensitive information over the phone, video, or email without confirmation. And just in general, and we're going to continue to harp on this throughout the webinar, you should always be wary of any urgent requests and make sure that you verify them directly with the source. All right, so now we've talked about AI, I'm going to move forward and talk about social engineering. And I think this is a very important topic because what we're seeing is a trend now from bad actors where they're no longer looking to attack vulnerabilities on devices or networks, right? They're actually looking to manipulate people. And that's exactly what social engineering is where these bad actors are able to use psychological factors to manipulate people and take advantage of human emotions. So we have some examples of social engineering here on the screen. I'll just briefly talk about some of them. We'll start by talking about phishing. This is a common tactic bad actors use where they're looking to get individuals to click on a link or open an attachment, a lot of times associated with an email. The goal is to get you to expose either your credentials or to infect your device where they can locate sensitive information there. Phishing is a form of phishing, but it occurs via the phone. So we'll talk a little bit later about some specific attacks or scams that involve phishing. But what bad actors will do, again, they will impersonate reputable companies or they will impersonate customer service representatives that may try to, use strong technical language or create a sense of urgency to get their target to either provide them with information that they can use to commit fraud or, gain unauthorized access. Smishing occurs via text messages. So you get a text message from an unknown phone number with a link in it. It may take you to an imitation page that looks like a legitimate landing page for a company, and you're tricked into entering sensitive information there that these bad actors will then use, again, to commit fraud. So as it relates to these smishing, you just want to make sure that you're very wary of any text messages that you receive from unknown phone numbers, especially if that text message is requesting that you click a link or open an attachment. And then quishing is a newer one that relates to QR codes. You see QR codes more prevalent now out in public or just in general as far as with a method to actually access websites. What bad actors have done is they've created malicious QR codes that will take you to imitation websites. Again, you go to a website and it looks legitimate. You're asked to provide some sensitive information that's captured by these bad actors, and now they're able to use that information that they've captured to commit fraud at a later point in time. Tip as it relates to the QR codes with quishing, you shouldn't really ever be prompted to enter any sensitive information when you are scanning the QR code. So if you are prompted to enter sensitive information, you want to proceed forward extremely cautiously and be wary of that. Also, as you scan the QR code, it's going to show you the actual URL, the destination URL, as far as where that's taking you as well. So you should be familiar with that URL, the website that it's taking you to ensure that it's legitimate. All right, so those are some examples of some tactics bad actors are using as it relates to social engineering. Now I'll talk specifically about some scams. Tech support scams is the first one I'll talk about. And, we'd be remiss if we didn't lead with this one as a scam because we see this one frequently impacting individuals, right? So with tech support scams, you get a pop-up or notification on your laptop or your desktop that your device has been infected and that you need to call Microsoft support to remediate or resolve the situation. That phone number that appears on your screen is going to be that first red flag that should let you know that this is a scam. Microsoft does not have a phone number that you can call for support as it relates to your devices. And so you just want to make sure that you don't call that phone number. If you do call the phone number, someone's going to be on the line claiming that they do work for Microsoft, right? They may ask you to use a special browser, or they may ask you to remotely go into your device so that they can determine if it's safe or not, right? And what they're really doing is just once they're able to remotely access your device, they can deploy malware, which could recreate screen sessions. They could put spyware on to capture keystrokes at a later point in time, which would capture credentials. There's a lot of different things that they could do as well. So you just want to make sure that you're very wary of this. If you do receive a pop-up on your device and you think it's legitimate that your device is infected, we'd recommend that you immediately disconnect that device and then take it to work with a local IT company so that you can ensure that the device is safe and that it's not infected or there's not anything malicious on it. All right, next I'll talk about investment scams. This is another one that's very impactful as it relates to just general public. So what bad actors are doing is they're contacting individuals about investment opportunities, indicating that these are can't miss opportunities, really that are too good to be true. And what we're seeing a lot of times with these investment scams or these investment opportunities are tied to cryptocurrency or fake cryptocurrency platforms as well. Right, so they'll get an individual to make smaller investments within this cryptocurrency platform. They may even get returns on some of their gains initially for those smaller investments, but there's always going to be a better opportunity where they need to invest more money, right? And so once you make that large investment for that better opportunity, you never hear from the bad actor again. And that's how the scam works. So you always want to be wary. Really, anytime someone's asking you to pay something in cryptocurrency, we see that's a frequent motive or a frequent way that bad actors were going to receive funds as it relates to a lot of these scams or as it relates to a lot of the fraud that they're doing as well. All right, next we'll talk about romance scams. It used to be a deal with romance scams where it'd say that we would just impact the older demographic, but I think with the popularity of dating apps, romance scams are impacting really everyone now. Bad actors will, create fake accounts on these social media pages or these dating apps and connect with people in an attempt to gain their trust through conversation and communication. Once they've gained the trust, it's always going to be an emergency that's occurred or something that's happened where they're going to need you to, help them and provide them with funds. They may ask for funds in the form of cryptocurrency, it may be a wire transfer, it may be gift cards, it may be ACH, but they're going to request that you send them funds based off of the actual emergency, and they may be hard to get in touch with or speak with. So as it relates to romance scams, if you are on one of those dating apps and you're meeting someone new, a good way to avoid that is to do like a video chat or a video call, right? To speak with them so that ensure that, they are who they say they are. You can also do a reverse image search as well sometimes to ensure that it is a legitimate photograph associated with that person. All right, last is toll text. This is another one that's definitely applicable. If you received a text message indicating that you need to pay a fine for a toll, you've received a toll text scam, and that's exactly what occurs. You get a text message indicating that you've gone through a toll, that you have unpaid fines. There's a link associated, in that text message. Again, the goal is to get you to click on the link. It may take you to an invitation page where you are suspected to be the toll authority, right? Or it may request you to provide information that can be used for fraud at a later point in time. So if you do ever believe that you owe a toll, you can just pay it directly through the toll authority's website. If you receive that text message and you feel it's legitimate, don't respond back directly to the text message. Go to the toll authority's website. All right, so last slide for me, just some simple things as far as what you should do if you ever fall victim, because these scams are constantly evolving, right? With the implementation of AI, gone are the days where you can just look at an email or a text message and see grammar errors, right? They're able to create and mimic real human tone, with use of these AI tools. So they're ultra sophisticated. So if you do find that you're a victim, you want to immediately change your passwords to any impacted accounts. Make sure that you're reviewing accounts as well. If you do notice or identify any suspicious activity or any unauthorized activity, make sure that you immediately submit a fraud claim with the company. You want to work with Jeff and team as well to ensure that they're aware that frauds occurred. They can work with our fraud team here at LPL, where we can add heightened monitoring to your account to ensure that there's not any fraud that occurs to your LPL accounts. And then last, but definitely not least, educate yourself, be proactive. We always like to say, yeah, this shouldn't be the first time that you think about these things, and it shouldn't be the last time as well. Continue to educate yourself and try to stay in the know so that you can identify these attacks or identify some common indicators associated with these attacks and avoid falling victim to them as well. All right, so that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back off to Olivia, and she'll talk to you about some things you can do to protect yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. That was a great segue. When it comes to scams, like Mike was mentioning, and social engineering, there are some backup methods that you can do to help protect your accounts and protect your information initially. That way, if something does happen, you do kind of have some sort of backup protections in place to help continue to secure those accounts that you have. And one of those methods is definitely going to be passwords. We understand this is not everyone's favorite topic. I'm pretty passionate about passwords. I know not everybody is the same way, but Mike and I like to refer to passwords as the keys to your kingdom. When you drive to a busy parking lot by the grocery store, you're not going to leave your keys to your nice car in the front seat, right? Same thing goes for passwords. You don't want your passwords written on your forehead for everyone to view and then use to access your personal accounts, right? So we need to keep these passwords as long and complex and secure as possible. One of the ways you can help keep passwords secure is to be careful with what you're putting into your passwords. One of those things is personal information. I know it's a lot easier to remember passwords that have your personal information in them, but it's a lot easier for these cyber criminals to find out that personal information because of the internet. We put a lot of our own information into our websites about ourselves, into our LinkedIn profile, or onto our social media accounts. And a lot of those things, like our dog's name and our birthday, can easily be found online. And so it's really important that you create unique passwords that don't have any of that personal information within them. Same thing goes for using dictionary words or simple one-word passwords. Instead, we like to encourage everyone to use longer sentence passwords instead, or passphrases. We don't want you to use this one, but something Mike and I like to use as an example is make advisors' lives easier. And so in that case, we have a longer sentence password. I mean, it's a little bit easier to remember, but then we can remove a couple of characters. So instead of the A, we can make an @ sign. Instead of the S, we can use a $sign. Instead of a 1, we can use an exclamation point. Different things like that you can do to make your password more complex by using special characters, numbers, upper and lowercase letters. One thing as well is definitely try to use at least a 12-character password, maybe even 15 characters if you can. And that really could make all the difference, because the longer and more complex your password is, the harder it is for these cyber criminals to crack using a brute force attack, which is where they'll try to use as many passwords as possible to try to guess it. But there's so many more combinations that would make it a lot harder to detect if you have a longer and more complex password. And finally, the one that everyone doesn't want to hear, do not reuse your passwords. I know that is super hard. It's hard for me as well to have a different password to every single one of your accounts. I think on average, we have about 75 different accounts that we manage. So that's 75 different passwords that we would have to be able to memorize and get access to easily. But to make that requirement there or guidance there a little bit easier is using something called a password manager. And really what that is it's a software where you can have all of your passwords stored in one place. All of them would be encrypted and protected by something called multi-factor authentication. So all you have to do is memorize one long password to get access to your account, and that would unlock that vault for you to reveal all of the passwords that you need. We definitely recommend using a password manager if you don't already have one. There's a lot of really great secure benefits to them and as accessibility features to make it a little bit easier for you to access all of your accounts. So if you haven't had one already, I would recommend going to pcmag.com, pcmag.com. There's a really great article in there on password managers and it lists out the different ones that are available. There's free ones, there's paid ones, so you can do that on research if you are interested to locate a password manager to make that a little bit easier there for you. And then finally on here, enable that multi-factor authentication for your account. Really what that is it's an additional layer of security that will require you to complete two different methods of verification in order to get access into your account. It'll verify something that you know, which is that username and password, and then something that you have which is that unique code that you will then type in order to get that access. Really in this type of situation where maybe a cyber criminal does have access to our password, they try to pretend to be us and sign into our account. That application won't allow them in unless you have that approval from your phone as well. So you have those two different methods of verification. It's really important to have that turned on for any personal accounts that you use. That goes for your email accounts, your banking accounts, and for your social media accounts. Anything where there's sensitive information within them, or it would be very detrimental if it were to be hacked, you definitely want to enable multi-factor authentication. It is available in the security settings of those applications. So please enable that moving forward. It really could make all the difference, especially if someone does guess your password. You know, you have that in place. And then if you do see that notification that there is a login attempt, if you did not initiate that, do not share or approve that multi-factor authentication attempt. So a really good thing to be mindful of when you do have it turned on, but then also a really great thing to have enabled as well. All right, moving on from passwords, I'm now going to talk about internet best practices. I'm sure we all use the internet here in our day-to-day lives. It's widely used everywhere, but unfortunately, these cyber criminals do use it as a method for increased cybersecurity attacks. So when it comes to using the internet, there are some good best practices that you can take advantage of to help increase that security. First things first is to always keep browsers and plugins that you use up to date. If you use any particular softwares on the internet, you have any extensions, or you use any particular browsers, they will have updates and patches that come with them. So it's really important to enable those as they come through, and that'll help decrease any of those vulnerabilities that may have been open, help patch any bugs or fixes that need to be made available. Second is to avoid connecting to public Wi-Fi and typing any sensitive information over public Wi-Fi. That goes for very public spaces like cafes, for example, where you don't exactly know who's on that shared Wi-Fi network as you. You can use something like a mobile hotspot or a VPN in order to secure or silo that connection. But it's always good to be mindful of exactly what you're typing into the internet and on what type of network. Next, when you are making any payments online, maybe you're doing some virtual shopping, also important what kind of payment method that you might use. If it's a little bit better to use credit cards rather than direct access to your bank account via like a debit card. You can also use third-party payments instead. Credit cards or those will be a little bit more secure because it's easier to report fraud on your account and you're not giving over direct access if you do happen to go through with a transaction that you did not intend to. So good advice there as well when it comes to doing any shopping online. And then finally, also important to only share sensitive information on legitimate and secure websites. You're probably wondering, how the heck do I know that's a legitimate or secure website? Well, a couple of tips for that is first to look at the top of the URL in the website. Look for that HTTPS. That S at the end stands for secure. So that's a really good indicator that you are on one of those secure websites and not an impersonation website that didn't get those certificate features. Another thing to do is just be careful when typing in full URLs into your browser. Typos can happen or misspellings, and a lot of big websites will have impersonation websites that maybe have one character change because they know people will accidentally type in the wrong URL, and that's going to take you to a faulty page. You then type in your credentials, they'll get stolen, and then that account could be at risk. So a couple good tips there when it comes to surfing the web. Unfortunately, your mobile devices can also be at risk of different security threats. So a couple tips here when it comes to mobile device security is to also update that software regularly. That goes for the device itself as well as any applications that you have within the device. Different companies, they do a really good job of making those patches, especially when there are any holes or vulnerabilities in their software. So it's really important to do those updates right away. Also great to only install known and trusted apps from official app stores. If you are maybe in a different app, like a gaming app, there's a lot of ads that tend to come through that want you to download their app through that ad. That can be pretty dangerous. It's only better to install apps on those official app stores, as well as do your research into those apps before you install. There's so many apps that are out there, and some of them aren't legitimate. So really good to do that research ahead of time and don't blindly download as many apps as you can onto your phone. Thirdly, here, evaluate the application privacy and security preferences for your phone. You don't want your solitaire app having access to your microphone, your camera, your location, your photos on your phone, right? If that's just a one-player app, you don't want them to have access to those things. You have control of those preferences, so you can first do the research to see what access that app will request, and then you can turn off those features as well in the security and privacy settings on your phone. So that's definitely a really good thing to do, is to look through the different apps and what they have access to. Turn off any of those unuseful features like the camera or their location, because that's all excess data that belongs to your own private information that probably doesn't need to be known by those apps, right? And then finally, turn on user authentication and use strong passwords. That means turn on a password for your phone in order to get access to it, as well as the different apps that you use within it. If your phone does get stolen or lost, that really could help as having that additional authentication on your phone that nobody who happened to pick it up would easily be able to get access to it. All right, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about securing your home. You might be familiar with the Internet of Things, which is any device that maybe has a sensor on it and is connected to the internet. Example that you might be familiar with is a smart TV or maybe a smart thermostat, something that connects to your phone and connects to the internet. Also, we tend to see Alexa or Google Homes. I've seen smart refrigerators, I've seen smart toasters. There's a lot of different things out there that you probably already have in your home already, but also do need to be kept secure. Definitely want to update that software regularly for those devices. And something else we recommend is potentially having maybe a segmented Wi-Fi network set up for your home. If you do happen to have a lot of these different devices in your house, maybe having a separate Wi-Fi network that they could all connect to rather than your main one that you would use for maybe your work computer or your personal information. Keeping all of that separate definitely does help in terms of you knowing who has access to your personal information. By having those segmented Wi-Fi networks, you really could be a little bit more in control of that. Definitely recommend changing the default passwords to all of those different accounts, and then constantly monitor what they have access to and if there is any unusual activity on those different accounts you have as well. Next, I want to talk about traveling. It is the summertime, so hopefully you guys have some fun summer plans coming up. Maybe you're going out of the country. When traveling, it is really important to value security over convenience. I know that can be hard. You're trying to have a nice vacation, but you don't want to be dealing with a security incident while you're trying to have a nice time. So a couple good steps here is really to stay vigilant of your surroundings. You really protect your belongings and be cautious of the risks that may be around you. Definitely learn about the local scams in the area that you might be traveling to, especially if you're going out of the country. There tends to be some common scams in different types of areas, so it's good to do that research ahead of time. That way you're not stressed out trying to deal with something, maybe a lost belonging or device when you're trying to have a nice vacation. We also recommend bringing portable chargers as well, especially when you're in and out of airports. Bringing a portable charger could be really helpful because we have seen something called juice jacking in airports and particularly hotel rooms as well, where these criminals will mess with like the different charging stations at airports, especially the USB ports that are available there. They'll put in another piece of hardware in between that port, so when you go to charge your phone, it transfers data onto your phone. It could brick the phone entirely or put some sort of malware on your device. Definitely something you don't want to be dealing with on your vacation. So instead, we recommend bringing your own portable charger or charging directly into the outlet that you see in the wall. That's going to be a little bit more secure than those USB ports or free charging cables available at those places. Again, also avoid that public Wi-Fi, especially if you're in a very large public place where there's a lot of people that you don't know or have control of their devices and what they're doing on them. Just take a little bit of extra caution when using that public Wi-Fi. All right, and then finally, I wanted to end here with protecting your identity. In this world, we do see in the news, especially, a lot of examples of data breaches or spaces where maybe you've even gotten a letter in the mail that says your information was a part of a larger data breach. And that brings up a lot of questions. And is your identity safe and secure? What we recommend to help protect your identity is going to be freezing your credit. This is something that you can do for free with the 3 major credit bureaus. You can give them a call and request that your credit is frozen. This really could make all the difference in protecting your information and protecting any new accounts being opened up in your name. But we also recommend reviewing your account activity regularly, looking at those credit reports to see if there was anything open that you did not initiate, then also checking on your accounts to see if there was any purchases that you did not initiate, looking at any of your personal accounts as well, like banking and email, to see if there was any other access that maybe occurred, maybe any emails that were sent out that you did not initiate as well. And this kind of goes with what Mike was talking about earlier, which is beware of social engineering tactics. Those are the ones that are designed to take advantage of your human emotions. And so you really want to be cautious with any requests that are unusual or coming from random methods, like maybe through social media platforms and new communications that way, or through email, text message, or over the phone, even in those QR code methods. Those attacks are designed to take advantage of emotions, but also to take advantage of your personal information that would therefore be effective of your identity as well. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, you also want to use those strong passwords for your accounts. That's going to make all the difference in if your account gets hacked or not. Having that long, more complex password really could help at the end of the day. So if there's one takeaway that you have from today, definitely go ahead and freeze your credit and use those strong passwords. Maybe just add a couple of extra characters to it, and it really could help at the end of the day. Now I want to close out here with talking about some best practices for staying safe. These are going to be really good takeaways that maybe you can bring to the dinner table or share with your family or friends. First is, again, update your software regularly, protect that sensitive data, and have adequate backups in place. Especially if you have a lot of personal information on your computer, it's good to have some sort of backup in case something happens to your devices. Maybe you're using some sort of cloud tool to store that data in a secure way. That really could be helpful for your personal information, how you store that as well. And then also use those long passwords to protect your account and enable that multi-factor authentication. Long password, enable multi-factor authentication is going to be the best thing you can do to protect your accounts. And then don't be pressured into immediately acting on an urgent request. These cyber criminals, again, will use those pressure tactics to say something is urgent and that you need to click on this as soon as possible. What they want you to do is to not even think if it's legitimate or not. But if you take those extra 5 seconds to think, maybe I shouldn't click on this, let me verify it in a different way, that really could make all the difference in if you fall victim or not. So don't be pressured into quick action like that. Take that extra time, value that security over convenience, and that will really give the power back to you in these situations. And then finally, if you are unsure of the legitimacy of an interaction, again, contact that company directly, verify with the different communication methods that you have. If it's coming from someone that you know, like a family member, friend, or colleague, talk to them on a different platform again, and that will be really helpful for doing that extra verification. I know it sometimes can be awkward or embarrassing to contact somebody, was this really you? But the more that we do that and the more we create these types of situations, it will really help at the end of the day for valuing security over everyone. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely would rather have, be checking back and forth with my family members and friends on if something is legitimate or not than to be that sorry person that falls victim to something because I was too afraid to reach out for help. So make sure you encourage people around you to feel comfortable and safe with talking to you as well. That way you have those trusted relationships and we're taking that power away from these cyber criminals and they're having these less successful attacks. That concludes our presentation for today. We really thank you for having us join. I hope you learned something or at least have a couple of new tools that you can take back to your family members and friends to help inspire them to value cybersecurity more. But if we do have any questions, we're happy to open up the floor right now for any questions might be about the presentation we had or just anything cybersecurity related in general.
Thanks, Olivia and Michael. There should be a little cue at the bottom of your screen that you can raise your hand if you do have some questions. While you're thinking about that, I'll point out a couple of things that we do here as advisors. A lot of people like to communicate these days by text messaging and emails. Um, and that's fine. However, as advisors, if we receive an email from you or a text message from you, we are going to call you and verify that it was you that sent it to us. That might be a little annoying, but it's for your protection that we do that, and it's actually a requirement that we have. Another thing that we see, if you are really concerned about someone pretending to be you and accessing your account, and maybe they're going to pretend to be you and call LPL directly and access your account. If that is a concern, we do have a way of dealing with that. We can put a restriction on your account that says the only way your account can be accessed is through our office. And we know you, so we would know if it was a phony you or not. Um, that also means you can't call LPL directly. You'd have to call the office. We have had some, LPL has people like Olivia and Michael that help with this area. They also have an anti-fraud division that does some really great work. We had a situation a while back where someone called a lady saying they were from the bank and they had a problem at the bank and they needed to change their bank account and they needed for her to send them the money. And she withdrew money from her account and sent it to them. It was totally fraudulent. I think it was originating from Hong Kong. And the anti-fraud division at LPO was able to work with this person and the bank and get most of the money clawed back into her account. So very helpful there. The money she had converted to Bitcoin, though, there's no getting that back. But the money that came from the bank, they were able to get back. So it's a very important area. We're happy to have Michael and Olivia help us out with this tonight. I don't see any hands raised, so we'll thank Michael and Olivia for being here with us and wish everyone a pleasant evening and a good rest of the week. Thank you much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Take care.